So first up, thank you everyone for being here. This is our last event of the year, because otherwise it would be at Christmas and none of you want to be here for that. Thank you to our sponsors. So Skybait and Gaming have paid for the pizza that will be showing up in the break. Bruntwood have given us the venue for free, which is fantastic. Starlight Software are doing our streaming, so we stream all this stuff to YouTube, so you can go and watch it later. There's Crispin, I was wondering where you were. And JetBrains have given us some codes to give away. I'll talk about the prize draw in a bit. JetBrains make IDEs and stuff like that. Please follow us on social media, so at LeedsJS on Twitter and on YouTube. All our videos go up on youtube.com/LeedsJS. Please join our mailing list if you haven't already. It's our primary way of contacting you since we left Meetup. It's just leedsjs.com/mailing lists. I will never sell your details. I will never send you junk that I'm just interested in. It will always be things that are relevant, whether it's conference discounts or us, one of our sponsors in return for giving us a conference discount once. Things. They want you to sign up for their CFP. It's just me getting you free tickets, all right? But yeah, I won't do anything negative with it. We do have a code of conduct. If you want to read the full version, go to leedsjs.com/code-of-conduct. I'm going to read out a short version. So, LeedsJS is dedicated to providing harassment-free meetup experiences for everyone, regardless of gender, sexual orientation, disability, physical appearance, body size, age, race, or religion. We do not tolerate harassment of meetup participants in any form. Sexual language and imagery is not appropriate for any meetup venue or online discussion, including talks or the Slack channel. LeedsJS members violating these rules may be sanctioned or expelled from the group at the discretion of the group's organisers. Job pitches. Does anyone have a job pitch? Anyone recruiting? Even the recruiters?
Yep, I'm Mark, we're from Crush IT. Me and myself and Molly, we do everything that's JavaScript and front end. I normally do permanent, it's contract. We've got positions available at the moment in Leeds from junior all the way up to tech lead. So yeah, reach out to me.
Anyone else?
Hi, I'm Jonathan from Data. We do all sorts of things in data. We've got teams building applications in React Native, web apps in web components, React, Angular. We also use Telephone Go, all sorts of different stuff. We're recruiting for developers at all levels. So if you want to come over chat, or my details will be on after my talk. Thanks everyone.
Anyone else?
Oh, actually, yeah. So we're recruiting, not people in this room probably, but we are recruiting for our next round of intakes in Leeds for the web dev apprentice. So if you know anyone who wants to get their foot in the door and whatnot, they can apply at webdevapprentice.uk/.
Cool. Any more? No? Cool. Thank you very much, everyone. Prize draws. So, as I mentioned, JetBrains have given us some codes to give away. So, the license is a 1-year license for any JetBrains Toolbox product of your choice. So, that's like PHP Storm is made by them, WebStorm, some Java ones if you're interested in Java, stuff like that. So, we have two. One will be through Twitter, so if you tweet with the hashtag LeedsJS, that will get you an entry. You can enter that as many times as you like, and you can also enter by going to leedsjs.com/prize-draw, and you will stick your name in there. Don't need your email address or anything, just your name. I will grab your email if you win, and that will get you one entry, not multiple.
I haven't blacklisted yet.
No. So Josh might win again. Also, we don't do Q&A. If you've got any questions for the speakers, please come up and speak to them after their talk. I'm sure they're more than happy to chat. And first up, we have Nathaniel, who's going to be talking about, who's a developer evangelist at Twilio, covering both the UK and Europe. He's a fan of JavaScript, sports, superheroes, and mixed martial arts. And he's going to be talking about landing on the desktop with Electron, which sounds really interesting, and I've wanted an Electron talk here for ages. So thank you much, and we'll just do a swap over.
Pressure.
Alright, now let's make sure that it doesn't like play and blast everyone's ears. Fingers crossed. Yes! Alright. There we go. Well, it's not helpful if only I can see the slides. Let's try this again. I want to present. That's definitely not what I want. Give me a second. Plug this in again. This again. Cool. Extend desktop. You got something. Cool. And then let's drag this over. There we go. Finally. Sorry about that. All right. I'm going to be talking about landing on the desktop with Electron. First of all, I would like to say thank you to the organisers of LeedsJS, and thank you attendees, because without you, I'd be talking to an empty room, so thank you very much for listening. Like I said, my name's Nathaniel Okenwa. You can find me on Twitter at ChatterboxCoder, and if you can find me later, you will find out why I'm called at ChatterboxCoder. And I am a developer evangelist at Twilio. Just a quick show of hands, how many people have heard about Twilio before? Okay, that's good, we're doing something right. So for those of you who don't know, we're a cloud communications company that give developers tools to enable them to integrate telecommunications into their apps. Now, I've only been working at Twilio for about 6 months, and one of the first things I got asked to work on when I joined was this. It's a game that they built called Twilio Quest. And they were like, oh, this is a game that's going to teach people how to use Twilio. And I was like, yeah, this is awesome, great, sign me up. And then they said, so this is what it's going to be. And then I saw these 3 logos, well, 4, down here, and I freaked out. And what are these logos? So they are the Windows logo, the Mac logo, the iOS logo, and the Linux logo. And the reason why I got really scared was because I am a JavaScript developer, and these are desktop applications, right? And those desktop applications are quite big. They usually have architecture that is very different across the different OSs, and there's a very high barrier to entry, in my opinion, learning how to build for those very quickly, especially someone who was just getting started. And then I found out, well, not before I do that, I am really comfortable with web technology, and I think web technology is very accessible to people. There's a low barrier to entry, and it's really good because they've got a large reach across so many different computers and different platforms, and usually it's standardized. So yes, I know that there are a lot of things that Internet Explorer doesn't support, but usually you can do things that go across all of these different platforms and different architectures. And it evolves quicker than operating systems because usually browsers can roll out changes quite quickly. So this is where I'm comfortable. And so talking about Electron is a framework that allows us to use web technologies to build desktop applications. So using the HTML, CSS, and JavaScript that I know and love, and being able to build actual desktop applications with it. But what is Electron? So in order to do that, let's go back in time to my favorite year, for a very special reason, you can guess my age now, to 1994. Now let me just paint the scene of 1994. So the original Lion King was topping the box office back then. A company called Sony had just released one of the greatest consoles of all time. You can tell I'm young now because I've said that. One of the greatest consoles of all time. And a company started up in a garage called Amazon. You can see where they are today. But another very important thing happened in 1994, as most of you JavaScript developers should appreciate: Netscape. And Netscape was released in 1994, and this is important because Netscape created a language that we all know and love, or hate, some of us, JavaScript, and it was the world's first popular browser. It wasn't the world's first popular browser, but it was the world's first browser that had JavaScript in it. And it was the most popular browser and had 90% of the market share of the internet fast forward to today, and the most popular browser is Chromium. Now, I know some people would say it's Chrome, not Chromium, but Chromium runs underneath the hood of Chromium, and also a lot of other browsers use Chromium as well. So we've got Chromium, but another very important JavaScript innovation was Node.js. And Node.js was released in 2009 and allowed us JavaScript developers to be free from the browser. And we could write code on computers and on the command line and run JavaScript. And that opened the door for full-stack JavaScript developers. And now we could build servers using Node.js. And what happened was Atom. How many of you have heard of the text editor Atom? Okay. How many of you still use the text editor Atom? Everyone's hands. Oh, okay, we got one. But GitHub, when they were developing Atom, they found a way to combine Node.js and Chromium into a single runtime. So you had Node.js running on a computer, but then Chromium doing the rendering, handling the rendering. And it was like a beautiful wedding, and they had the baby, and that is Electron. So Electron was developed for Atom, and now it's used so widely in the world. We use it. How many of you have Slack on your computers? So Slack is an Electron app. VS Code is an Electron app. I could go on, there are a couple of others, but those are two of the most popular ones. So I'm going to start by talking about Hello World, because that's always the first thing we try to produce as developers. And the way Electron works is there are three main files. So we have a main.js file. And the main.js file does the heavy lifting. So it handles Windows, opening and closing Windows, not Windows, the operating system. And it also has most of the native features. So you can call the native GUI APIs on each of the different platforms, so on Mac, on Windows, and on Linux. And then you can also access all of the Node APIs. So what you may not usually always have available in the browser, you can now do with Electron. And then, so sort of main.js helps you manage the app from a very broad perspective. And then what's happening inside each of those windows is really coming out of an index.html. And this is in its most basic form. Now, some people may be using frameworks like React or Angular, and you can definitely integrate those into an Electron app. I'm just boiling it down back to its basics. So the index.html is where all the rendering is taken from, or the how to lay out and what actually happens inside of that window. And then you also have renderer.js file. So a renderer JavaScript file is almost attached to that index file, and you also have access to the Node APIs that you may not usually have in the browser. Now, what's a bit tricky is the renderer.js file doesn't actually have access to some of the native GUI APIs. So, for example, if you wanted to make notifications or certain things that are built into the operating system, they're not available in renderer.js, and there's a process at which you need to connect this and main.js and have them pass information to each other to trigger things like that. But I'm going to show you a demo. I'm just going to look into the most basic piece of code that is a Hello World application. So I'm going to mirror these displays, and hopefully this works. I'm going to move over to here. So this is very simple HTML, and you can see we've just got a Hello World with a title and welcome to your Electron application. And if I scroll over one more, we can see that this is the Hello World. It's not just, I can actually minimize it, it's like a normal window. And then what we can do, if I scroll back to this, we can see that this is our, let me move that. Can people see that? I think it might be a bit too small. But what we have is we can create our windows, so we're creating a browser, and then what we're doing is we're loading our index.html. Now what we can do is rather than just loading a static HTML file, we can create a HTML file dynamically and serve it there with Electron. And what we do is we have events that happen when certain things occur. So for example, if the window is closed, we want to get rid of it. If they all close, we should quit. And then this is something which is quite useful on Mac specifically, where on Macs and get rid of that. One Max, if you close it, you can click on the icon, and rather than the whole application quitting like on Windows, if you hit X, the whole application quits. And on Mac, if you hit X, just the window's closed, and then you want to hit quit. So that's just a little piece of code to help with that. So you've got the index.js and the index.html. Now, if I wanted to do some more extra things inside, for example, notifications, and I wanted to trigger them from my HTML, then I'd have the renderer.js file that would be running alongside that. Hopefully that's clear. All right. So now let's head. Now, when you're building with Electron, you can then also, and this is the bit small, it's on the resolution is very different, but what you can do, so this is an example of some of the Electron APIs that are available. And when I say Electron APIs, it's really just the native GUI APIs and the Node APIs that you have available. So for example, we can create and manage windows. I really wish I could zoom in. So you can create and manage windows. So for example, this is a little demo, and all of this is available on electronjs.org, and that's where I sort of went to learn about how to build things with Electron. So if I want to view a demo, this is a new window. If I can move it around, and it's being managed now by the main.js of that file. And so there's other things. For example, the menus that appear on the top, File, Edit, View, Window, and Help, you can customize those as well with the code in Electron. You can also register keyboard shortcuts. You can open the file manager. And what's really nice as well is a lot of times, because of security, and this is for good reasons, browsers aren't allowed to touch things on a user's computer. And with Electron, you have more access because it is a desktop application. You can also use system dialogues, so rather than just making pop-ups, you can use, rather than just alerts, sorry, you can also have system dialogues that are built into the OS. You can put your app in the tray, which is quite nice, I really like it. I built a little, I didn't build, I edited a little Pomodoro app so that it's in the tray, and every time I need it, it pops up and just reminds me to switch between tasks. You can also, where is notifications? Yes. You can also do basic notifications, which when you hit view demo, because I've got my thing on do not disturb, do not show. I know this because I built one live and it didn't work for ages in a demo. So you've got basic notifications. You can also do notifications with images and sound as well. I'm going to turn that off before my Slack messages come back in. So there's so much powerful things that you can do with Electron, and what it really does is it gives us JavaScript developers the power to step out of just the browser and to build these desktop applications with the resources we know, with the skills we have. Head back to this. There we go. Cool. So let's say you're thinking about getting started with Electron. So you will eventually start with the index.html, your main.js, and then you'd also have a renderer.js. And you're going to eventually reach this point where you're going to have to decide, should I use a boilerplate? Now, I'm just going to explain what a boilerplate is for anyone who's new. So boilerplates are, I like to describe them as sort of guidelines. They give you some code that gives you all the framework you need to get started, and then you can start building on top of it. I saw this YouTuber who buys coloring books, but then because he is a graphic artist, he then colors them like so much better than the actual coloring books, and that's kind of what a boilerplate is. It gives you this code and this framework to get you started, but then gives you also the freedom to build on top of it. Now, when you are building an Electron app, it's not just developing it and rendering things onto the screen that is a challenge. Now, because you're working to get this application onto many different architectures, onto many different operating systems, each of these have slightly different ways of packaging. And unlike some other parts, other frameworks, it's not opinionated. So there's not one right way of doing it, and we're still trying to figure out the best way to package it. But one thing I would encourage you to do is to use a command line interface. And I know we all know, many of us may know what a command line interface is, but specifically in the world of Electron, what it does is it helps you to deal with packaging your app ready to be installed on different platforms as well. And I like to think of the command line interfaces. If Santa had to deliver Christmas all by himself, it would be very difficult. And that's why he has his little helpers, and that's what the command line interface, when you're using it with Electron, can help you with. So thank you for listening, and this was just a brief introduction into what you can do with Electron. I'm going to show you a little thing about the thing I spoke about earlier that I've been working on. So this was Twilio Quest. So this is an Electron app. We built this using, let me just end that conversation. We built this using JavaScript and web technology. So technically it can be run in the browser, but because we are running it inside Electron, let's see if we can find a mission. I've just reset it so I can't open a mission. But because of that, we have a JavaScript editor and a Node runtime actually inside the game. And we're able to implement that really because it's Electron and we have access to all the Node APIs. And that's just an example of something that you can build with Electron. But thank you very much for listening. My name's Nathaniel Akenwa. You can find me on Twitter. If you have any questions about Electron, I try to keep it quite just like as an introduction because I know we have so many different skill levels, and some of you may have already built stuff with Electron before and maybe probably know a lot more than me, but feel free to come and ask me questions and also to point out maybe if I said anything incorrect and you want to chat about it. But thank you very much for listening. Have a good night.
Okay, thank you very much, Nathaniel. I didn't get to watch a lot of that because pizzas, but I will definitely watch it back because Electron, as I said at the start, is something that's been fascinating for me for a while, and I really want to give it a go. Just feel free to put it in. Oh, you need an adapter. I can borrow your adapter.
It is Leic.
So next up we've got Leic, who's a research fellow at Leeds Institute for Data Analytics, which is a very impressive sounding role. And he's going to be talking about how JavaScript has eaten data visualization as well as everything else. So take it away.
Thanks, Luke. Thank you very much. Thank you. So I think I'm probably coming at the right time after you talked about Electron on the whole world of JavaScript. And I've got 10 minutes, so this is going to be really fast. And yes, the title and the whole institute that I work for might be mouthful, but that's not why I'm here. I like to still think I am a developer. I did my PhD back at the School of Computing at Leeds, but I try to be kind of be connected with you guys rather than with the researchers who really are forced to kind of code than we are and we love to do. So the team is the research funding comes from Alan Turing Institute, based in London. If people want to find out more about them, kind of the National Institute for AI and Data Science, and funded heavily by the UK government. But Dr. Nick Lomax, who's a geographer, Roger Beecham, who loves visualization and he does awesome visualization, are both at the Earth and Environment at Leeds, and I'm the programmer, the coder. But I didn't do JavaScript. Seriously, I was not taught JavaScript at School of Computing. Back in 2004, it was like, JavaScript is dangerous. Why would you want to do JavaScript? We've got HTML5 and the whole story, basically. So every time I want to talk about JavaScript, I'm kind of in the still defending mode and saying, come on, it's not about Rust. JavaScript can do quite a lot. So I found myself, after my PhD, handling a large-scale project that needed a scalable front end, and hence my story of JavaScript, because I had to find out something better than jQuery, and then the story starts, basically. So a couple of quotes here, but I'm going to skip because Nathaniel just really covered most of it, really. Here is a story from the man himself, but I think for what I'm doing, the reason that I had to dive back into JavaScript, and I was supposed to do R and Python and stuff like that, is because we now can use WebGL. When I did my PhD, I had to rely on iOS's graphics library basically, and I couldn't do the WebGL back then. But now we basically run on top of the GPU. We've got TensorFlow, thanks Google. We've got quite a lot more. And my recent trip to Vancouver, I found out that basically the best paper won because it was a web app, because it was written in JavaScript, and I'll show you that a little bit. So the thing again covered all sorts of space that JavaScript has taken, and the mobile world, that's where I started really doing Android first, and then iOS a little bit, and then had to obviously switch over to React Native again for that graph databases project. Again, back to your 1994. So here is, and putting you back into context, what I'm doing currently is web mapping, lots of geospatial visualization, so a bit of history of web mapping, hence this beautiful image. But the libraries that we can use are as big as these really, so many of them. We're going to focus a little bit, well, I'm just going to highlight really, I'm not going to talk about them, OpenLayers and Leaflet, and basically the Mapbox guys hired the developer of LeafletJS, and he works for Mapbox, and Mapbox basically just is amazing. And just I should stop a little bit there because Uber guys have been also working quite hard to add layers on top of Mapbox to visualize their own data, and they've got an API to release parts of the trips data, which again, if I have time, we can have a look at a beautiful isochrone of trips around Leeds. This is the best data viz paper from IEEE Viz this year, Vancouver. It is actually beautiful, and I loved it. The idea is very simple. We can have a look at it actually, but we can't have a look at it really. It's just a demo of the application. The source code is available. You just remember VizFlow or FlowSense if you like. But best paper IEEE Viz 2009. My slides are available anyways. You load a library, an icon for a library, data set that is, and they've got few for you to play with, MPG and Iris data set and stuff. As you do that, that's the library hidden there, and then you load for example a scatter plot. As you do that, you just pull a line from the data set to the scatter plot, and here you assign your values, basically the X and Y, and magic happens basically. This is our work. This is I started this back last year. Who has heard of Uber's Kepler-GL? Yes. Okay. So quite similar to Kepler-GL. Kepler-GL is again one of Uber's progressive or incremental work from their DeckGL library, which is an interface to analyze geospatial data basically. The way I've done it. I've taken a slightly different basically turn from Kepler. I could probably still go back to Kepler and make it the base of the code, but we just wanted so much customization that I thought probably I would be tinkering too much with Kepler than writing my own code. So we started with it. I started with this. This is, and hopefully show you a little bit if I've got still time. And I'd love to touch on that on that stack a little bit if I have time. But here is our current work. This is the local host one. There is an IP address. Alan Turing Institute will assign a subdomain to it, but I'm going to discourage you from having a look at this, but it is somewhere available. So if I reset this back, we will be loading, and I should change the map back to the default. This is Department for Transport's Stats 19 data. Anybody heard of? Road crashes are recorded by police officers, sent to Department of Transport. Department of Transport process that and releases it back to the public domain, as with all sorts of other departments around the government. This is the chunk in our area. I've clipped it off just to show you. What you see, the heat map here is, again, Uber's DeckGL, just superimposed on Mapbox. So the tiles here, And then what I have done is written React modules to be able to then generate visualizations as you explore your data set. For example, if we want to just see the same, we've got another one for the road types, but if we just select the road type and say, can we have a tree map of those, it should be able to generate a tree map, and you would see that, yes, single carriageways cover the most of the data set, for example. But again, you could change the way you look at the data, and again, we could be going on about this for long, really, but that you probably get the idea. And what we try also to do is to be able to load your own, hopefully different types of data sets, because there are libraries, again, JavaScript amazing, that you could that it could detect a CSV being location columns within it and converting it into the type of, obviously, format that Mapbox and Leaflet and others would be able to process it. So quickly, if I can, I'm not sure if I've still got time, if we dump a little bit of area or region data, this is again data generated by my colleagues, again Nick, who has done it. We would be able to we should be able to. So this is the areas of I think around Oxford, where they've predicted GVA and a couple of other variables, which can be seen again in the variables here. That we can assign the way we color the choropleths, or indeed, as with DeckGL provides it, with the height of these areas according to the GVA or the jobs predicted up to year 2050. This is incredibly, obviously, customized still to the datasets that I'm aware of. When you upload a dataset that it knows nothing about, the only place where I have managed to get it to work is similar to Kepler GL. Again, one person in the back knows about it. You can explore your dataset based on that, and also the type of visualization you superimpose on the map can be based on that column that you can choose. I think I should stop here. Okay, cool. Finally, you can find me on GitHub. If you search for LAYIK, you should get to the repo and everything else that I just presented. Thank you very much.
Cool. Thank you very much. It's fascinating insight into. I mean, we all know that JavaScript is powerful, but being able to see it used for things like that, doing a lot of heavy lifting, it's great. So next up, we have Crispin, who's just plugging everything in. So if you were here last month, you saw Crispin. If not, Crispin heads up the Coders Guild and runs the Web Dev apprenticeship scheme here, like I showed out earlier. They are looking for their next cohort, so if you know anyone, speak to Crispin. And he's going to be talking about mentoring and the experience, what's in it for you as a mentor, not just what's in it for the mentees. So if this shows,
Do it.
Wait,
Do it.
take it away, Crispin.
Right, thank you very much. Thank you. So yeah, mentoring. What's in it for me? That's what we're doing. Hello. Luke just did my intro, so I don't need to. Yeah, just skip that. We can get right on to mentoring. Yeah, so I was at this thing at the a council-run thing about digital leads and doing digital skills in Leeds, and we had all these breakout groups of different people doing stuff, and my one was about schools and teachers, and Dan Ackers, who was running another group next to mine, their thing was about a mentoring program, and he got up to do his presentation at the end of their thing, and the first thing he said was, "Well, it's funny that I got in the mentoring group because I think mentoring's bullshit." And then I was like, "Oh." And I kind of I was a bit taken aback by that. I think that, it's a strong statement for him to say. And if mentoring is bullshit, what are these people about, right? All these people. Because that wasn't what he was talking about. What he was talking about was business mentoring, right? Where So some old geezer reframes their privilege and luck as their business history as some sort of special skill that they can pass on to the next generation of egotists and sociopaths who run businesses. But and the mentoring that I'm talking about, just to interject there, in case I just realised the video going out, I've got a business mentor. She's really good, super valuable, and we do a lot of stuff. But like, to talk about that just for a second, maybe it's my experience with mentoring in general that meant that I found the right person who would mentor me. And this is a big deal. The mentor-mentee relationship is really important. It isn't something that you just pop out the hat. You don't just get decreed you're going to be a mentor and away you go. You're good at it. So when I was looking for a business mentor, there was a few people who wanted to be my mentor, but they weren't the right fit for me. So they didn't get the job. That's good. Right. So the sort of mentoring that I'm actually talking about is more the developer mentors. You know, the dev to dev, that sort of mentoring through your journey in becoming a better developer. This is Jack here. You won't recognise Jack. Jack is Al will recognise Jack. Al was Jack's mentor at a company we worked at years ago in Leeds. So Jack was of the first cohort of apprentices that we took on, and Al was his mentor. He worked with us, and mentoring worked out well for him. Now he's a software engineer consultant at Manifesto. You know, a few years down the line. So we know it works that way. But what we're talking about is how does that work out? What's in it for me? That's the title of the thing that we're here to discuss. So there's often like a bit of a pushback in teams, groups, companies when we're saying, right, we're going to do a mentoring program, because they're thinking like, okay, well you're just going to take up resource in time to have a nice chat and to do stuff that's not productive. You're going to have some chat times. I don't know what this slide is about, to be honest, but from our experience, from specifically Al and I's experience, and the experience of the other people in the first few cohorts of the apprenticeship thing that we ran, the value that we were able to get out of starting and maintaining mentorship programs was actually enormous. And the things that we didn't realise was how much extra benefit there was going to come back to the rest of the people in the team, and not just the team, but other people in the team and the business in general. So we look at all these things. I just chucked some post-it notes down to make this slide, but all of these things are kind of benefits for the other people in the team, for managers, for team leaders, and the business. And I kind of jotted down these few things that kind of come under these three areas. So in terms of CPD, continuous professional development, which is something that is in general developer land kind of left to us to sort out. We don't usually get help sorting out what do I need to know, what ought I need to know. So well, you're the developer, you go and you do your own stuff outside of work. But in sorting out a mentoring program, and when you're assigning people, these people have got to know about their subject, and there might be gaps in their knowledge that become exposed, so that feeds into their continuous professional development, and the mentor, gets to be a better developer as well. It's not just about becoming a better dev either, like knowing what you don't know. You also get management experience, and there's often this thing, where you get as a developer career, I'm getting a better dev. Now you don't do no dev anymore. You just manage people, and that transition is often very abrupt. And I know a lot of people who haven't managed that well, and a lot of companies, a lot of teams who haven't managed that process well, and has meant that developers get the hump and go off somewhere else. So a mentoring program, another kickback there is teaching people, or giving people, not teaching people, giving people a way of understanding and learning about that journey to becoming responsible for other people and to become a manager or a leader. Another thing, everyone starts talking more when you've got mentoring and you're talking where you'd have set times to do mentoring. So you are sat down and you're forced to talk about stuff. And the impact of that often is that disseminates throughout the organisation. There's more and more people just that talk about stuff more, talk about what they're doing, get an understanding of other people's roles, even if they're not a particular part of that mentor-mentee relationship. You might be dealing with other people, other teams, and talking about the sorts of things that go on that aren't specifically to do with your development work, working with other people and stuff like that. And communication gets better, silos get broken down, all this good stuff. Now the other one is, the other mega benefit is when you have got a remit to start teaching people stuff and to look after people's learning journey, you then have to start writing that down. And this is a thing that we're pretty bad at, especially like web dev people are quite bad at documenting things and writing processes, or even like feeding into processes. And this, I think, more from was really prevalent in another team that were in the first round, is when they set up their mentoring and they realised that the two main people in the team, they had been working together for so long, they were basically telepathic, and they had no process documentation. So when they're trying to explain this to Tyler and Mo, they're just trying to talk to them, and we have to start writing things down. And that made them think about the processes that they had. It made them think: are we going to do this? Is this a good thing? Now we're writing it down. Maybe we could do something better. And it made them more efficient, and it made them create and maintain documentation and processes, which was another massive benefit. That is pretty much the end. That's another weird slide, doesn't mean anything. But I've smashed on through. I thought it was a 5-minute one, not a 10-minute, so I did a 5-minute one. But I thought we can spend a few moments here looking at these mentors. Let's have a quiz. Who knows who this is? This one?
Splinter.
This one?
Go from dodgeball.
Yeah, what's his
Can't
name?
remember his name.
His thingy, Houlihan? I can't remember his name either. Yeah, dodgeball guy.
Is this Yeah, Alfred.
Alfred, yeah. What about this?
Guy, Happy Gilmore.
Yeah, what's his name? Chubbs, something. Chubbs. There's an alligator bit off his hand. He went to get the golf ball from the alligator and it bit his hand off. This one? Cool.
Is that Mary Poppins?
I can't remember this guy's name. Is that the film Almost Famous? Is that him? He's like the journalist who. Yeah, right. Never mind. This one?
Dumbledore. $1 Million Baby. But
Yeah, what's his? Yeah, $1 Million Baby guy. He's called Frankie Buns, I think. This one? Mickey G. Something begins with Mickey Goldhill. This one? I don't actually know this
I
one.
have to crouch into.
Yeah. I don't know. This one? This one's a trick. He doesn't even have a name in the film. I think he's billed as the stranger. Sam Elliott as the stranger in Big Lebowski.
It's Kurt from Ratatouille.
Yeah.
I'm annoyed that I can't remember his name. Is it Gustavo?
Yeah.
Something?
It's Gustaf or something. Is it?
I think it's Gustav. Yeah.
Yeah.
Spot on.
Yeah, and
Oh, you sure? Gandalf. Xavier.
and
No idea.
it's Sean Maguire, not the one from Ancient Grange Hill. It's the one from Good Will Hunting. Well done.
Thank you very much, Crispin. So we are going to